Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum, all, and thank you, Asan, for joining in and inviting me as well. And I'd like to start off with the overall picture of how qordata went through the process of Sharia compliance, and then now moving towards Ubudiyah. And in the next 20-25 minutes, what I'd like to cover is some of the portions that I'd like to cover would be how we went across our journey as qordata, and then during that journey across the years, what is it that got us started, and then what was our approach, and then what were some of the benefits and challenges and the critical success factors that were critical to our implementation of Sharia compliance as a culture, Ubudiyah as a culture in the organization. And so before we get started on our journey, I'd like to cover a few slides across around the idea on what is our core business. So qordata is a software company, and we have two business practices. One is where we provide professional services to our customers across the North American, European, and Asian regions. And we serve customers across the retail and oil and gas and pharma industries, with specifically our niche being business intelligence and data warehousing, data analytics. And the second business practice that we have is where we have developed our own set of products for the pharmaceutical life sciences industry. And those lie in the category of B2B software as a service products. And so we serve the commercial compliance functions within the pharma life sciences industry. And those, if somebody is interested in knowing what kind of software we build, those are basically workflow-based, analytics-based, data-driven software that we have built across the last few years. And we're headquartered in Princeton, New Jersey. We have this offshore office here in Karachi, where I'm based out of. And we also have teams working from different cities within Pakistan, such as Lahore, Islamabad, and also working from Central Asia, and a particular team set that works from the North American region as well. And the ultimate purpose of our organization is to please the creator. And that's what we carry as human beings as well, right? The purpose of our life is to, in this world, to please Allah, and then work for the year after as well. And so what we did was, once we had the ultimate purpose defined, we defined the purpose of the organization as to what our niche is going to be and how we would be contributing towards the overarching purpose. What is our space in this world? And so we did this exercise to determine our purpose a few years ago, and then we refined it as we learned a lot of things across the journey. And so our purpose is to serve humanity through meaningful technology solutions while pursuing excellence in a principled way. And so why this is an important slide for us is because, and this is an important concept for us, not just a slide, is because we carry that purpose day in and day out in our lives, while we are here in the office, while we are making hiring decisions, while we are making firing decisions, while we are calling customers, while we are creating business strategies, while we are creating processes. That's what we keep in mind, and we remind ourselves on a frequent basis as to what our purpose is. And so along the way, we also define our core values And somebody found a great acronym for that as well, color, right? So our core values are create fearlessly, own it, live with integrity, uplift others, and respect. And we aspire to be a culturally rich organization. And so our performance reviews, our hiring decisions, um, our recognition awards as well are tied around the core values, so that the culture is brought into practice in our daily lives through this. And so our journey towards Sharia compliance, or moving towards pure or halal income for all of us, for all our associates, it started off back in 2014, when we had a couple of reinsurance customers that we were serving. One was based out of Manhattan, the other one was in Fort Wayne in the US. And these accounts were growing. Like, we had a good number of consultants working for these customers. And at that point in time, we had a discussion internally back in 2014, like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. We had this internal discussion on making sure that whatever income or revenue that we are generating for the organization, it needs to be pure and halal, right? And so we decided to seek fatwa around the current customers the existing customers at that point in time, and found out that we have to discontinue working with our insurance clients. And so we created an exit plan. We had to craft a messaging for those customers, because these are Western non-Muslim customers, right? So the messaging has to be in a way that resonates with them. And so we created an exit plan and exited from these customers in 2015. And then fast forward in 2018, we kind of ideated to move towards full Sharia compliance, as we thought that it's not just the source of income, but also our practices that need to be in line with Islamic principles. And so the idea came into existence as to we should move towards a Sharia compliant business. And so what we moved towards was Ubudiyya business model, which is not just Sharia compliance, it's much more than that. And so it starts from our niyat, right? Because every amal, it's dependent on our niyat. And so we started off with correcting our niyat as to why we exist, and that's where the purpose came in. We refined the purpose. We set the right directions for all of us, and then it flows through gaining Sharia compliance. And then it's just not limited to Sharia compliance as to FERS and those categories, but also moving towards the higher levels of excellence towards bringing Sunnah in our lives, in our daily lives, and also gaining the highest levels of akhlaq, which we cannot we cannot reach the target, because our benchmark is Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but and we realize we cannot reach the target, but that's at least that's the benchmark that we had in our minds, and that Islam encourages us to have when it comes to gaining the levels of akhlaq. And then why the idea came into existence, and why we are even doing all of this, why even one should pursue Sharia compliance or Ubudiyya in their businesses, because our everyday life of 24 hours of our lives converts into ibadat. So everything that we do is in line with Islamic principles, and also what Allah wants us to do at that point in time. And so business becomes ibadah. then halal income for our associates, and not only the associates that are working for us, but also the families that they are carrying. Most of them usually in the subcontinent are breadwinners for their families. And so that income would flow through their family members and also the people around them, and not just the current family members, but it also flows through the whole hierarchy. And it's not just the world hereafter, but Allah promises if we are working towards, if we bring Islam in our daily lives, then Allah not only promises the success in the hereafter, but also in this world. And so achieving business excellence, and then in this world that we are in, with all the tough business practices going on, challenges going on, and people not getting enough opportunities of having a large source of income, and then there are other challenges as well. We wanted to be, through this vehicle of qordata, we wanted to be the inspiration for other businesses as well, that becoming an example. So that's what those were the driving factors when we decided to pursue and bring in these practices. And so once we had a decision, we took a certain approach, and nothing wrong or right here, but our approach was to starting off with the gap analysis as to, this is the level that we want to reach and we are here. And so what is the gap, what's the delta, and and then we started creating a plan around how do we get from point A to point B. And that was the goal setting exercise. So we did yearly goal setting exercises. We also started introducing multiple initiatives on an annual basis, and then did a purpose refinement exercise, introduced a level of detail around our core values it's not just the core values, the one word value, but also the behaviors through which we would be able to identify whether I am exhibiting or I am fulfilling those values, though I'm showcasing those value systems. And then for the whole organization, culture building and mindset is something that we are working in parallel through trainings, coaching, everyday conversations. And these trainings are not just limited to the whole staff, but also the leadership team members. And then we kind of believe in frequent cadences with a set frequency. And so our approach was to establish a bi-weekly, fortnightly cadence through which we would track our progress in terms of our yearly goals, quarterly goals. And along the way, how would we actually go about doing a gap analysis was we again did a internal mashwara, or we took advice from internal team members. We formed a small panel, and then we decided to invite Sharia advisors on board, who then came in and did the gap analysis. They submitted a report that would have observations with different intensity levels as to level 3, level 2, and level 1. Level 3 are those, for example, that are haram practices, and we should, right away, these are not allowed in Islam, and right away cut off those practices and then convert to something else. And they followed the process of interviewing our sales team, marketing team, finance team members to review the contracts, HR team to look at the employee contracts and whatnot, right? So they followed an interview process and then submitted a gap analysis report that we could then see and then align our goals around that. They also helped us with defining our purpose, core values, and behaviors. They did these staff and leadership trainings, and they were around for us to answer any operational questions that would come across as we want to set the right path for our associates. And then they helped us in seeking fatwas for different challenges. They also helped us in monthly, quarterly, and semi-annually internal reporting, so that we could track progress on that basis with the rest of the team members, and also with the goal setting. So Sharia advisors that we are currently working with, they engage with us on these areas. And so we also, what worked for us was that we built an internal team around across all departments. And so there was a leadership team representation in the internal team, and that's absolutely important to have at least one leadership team member sitting in the Sharia compliance team, because it's practically, it has to be practical as well. So all of the leaders in the organization, the managers, everybody is just working towards business goals. And so sometimes prioritization might get affected, right? So there has to be somebody who puts his foot down and then says that this needs to be done. And then whatever support is required from the extended leadership team, he gains that support, right? So that's why this was absolutely important for us. And then we also assigned an internal coordinator, champions for each of the departments. So sales, one from marketing, one from finance, one from HR, one from IT. So all those champions would participate in a bi-weekly cadence, during which this panel of 7-8 members would discuss what needs to be done in the next 2 weeks, would have action items assigned to them in Asana, and you're using this task management tool. It's there is a free version for this, which was sufficient for us. So we created plans in Asana and then assigned action items in these bi-weekly cadence, and then the champion for each of the team would then go back to their team and then get those done. For example, if HR needs to change any policy based on some of the practices that that need to be changed, he would then go to the HR team and get it done with, and then come back and report back to this team. And so this is how we structured internally, which was also very, very important. And then one would argue that all of this needs to get done in addition to our existing business, and there are business goals to achieve as well. There is a lot of effort that needs to be done in this world, in this competition. There's all sorts of challenges along the way. And so one would argue, why should I even go for it, even though there are multiple reasons, but there has to be a set of visible benefits that need to be there in order for us to remain motivated, to encourage the team members. And so some of the benefits that we felt sorry, what? Do you guys hear me?
No, Mr. Salman. Please continue, Mr. Salman.
All right, okay. And so the visible benefits that we could feel, or sometimes people would note from their naked eyes, were, of course, business becomes ibadat because that's now in line with the Islamic practices, and that's fulfilling the promise of Allah. And then increase in compassion in our staff, and I could not find the right word here. Compassion, it's in Urdu we say fikr. So I could not, I could not find till date a true translation of fikr to the right English word. So increase in compassion in our staff, to in terms of compassion for others, in terms of compassion of following the Islamic practices. And female dressing transformed into a much closer Islamic principles. And then we also noticed, because we have this musalla upstairs on top of our building here in Karachi, and then several team members over the last 12 months or so, they noticed that the count of the people coming in to pray, namaz, salah, they noticed that there was an increased number of prayers during the last few months, and that's something that we all felt. And also feeling of barakah in people's lives. They would compare, the existing employees would compare themselves with their lives before qordata. And then there were some people who transitioned out of qordata, and then after a few months when we met them, they would recall how it was a lot of barakah in the salary that they had before, even though the salary in the organization that they are working in right now is twice than what they used to get at qordata, but still they would feel a lot of barakah. They felt a lot of barakah in their salary when they were working at qordata. And a lot of people have this drive towards now understanding Quran, understanding ahadith, and in general understanding Islam. They would ask questions, and they would like to have a small discussion around some challenges that they're facing in their lives, and also overall improvement in akhlaq, following one of our core values of respect as well. And along the way, we've also noticed that we kind of, in the last 3 years or so in our journey, we have experienced a lot of business growth as well. Not that that's the purpose of pursuing Ubudiyya, but it's the business goals achievement is felt across the board as well. And so I would definitely endorse that even though there are some challenges, there is definitely business growth hidden behind all of this effort that the team is doing. And so just some of the challenges that we face, because we work in the US and the European market, and then we have team members working there as well, it's sometimes hard to even get some of these messages across to them, because they would probably not understand those messages. So some challenge there on how do we actually do the messaging. And so in our visits in conferences or client offices in the US, in Europe, because it's in their culture to, meet and greet in a certain way. And so that also is one of the challenges that we face, is to how do we then message it across to them that we're not allowed to shake hands with women, and so on. So one of the challenges that we faced was this as well. We of course need to be more creative in marketing, and also in our Karachi office, we introduced the dress code for females, and so we had to follow a lot of hikmah in making sure that we don't step on the right in the right directions. And so we had to have those discussions before we actually implemented the female dress code. And then some of the females did express that after the dress code implementation, they did feel like that it was enforced, and then the rest of them felt it was okay. And so we were ready with those challenges, but along the way, those were the challenges that we faced. Not that we were not able to solve these challenges, but these were considerations that came in along the way. And so in summary, what I would define the critical success factors would be 4. Number 1 would be that in our so far successful journey towards Sharia compliance and Ubudiyya, ownership of leadership team is absolutely critical. And the mindset of all of us of spreading the word of Islam becomes critical as well. And also that relationship and connectivity with our scholars, absolutely important, so that we don't lose the path along the way. And qordata is quite within, at least within the organization, and in some of the interviews that I had conducted recently for the new hires, one of the things that they have expressed is that we care a lot for our associates, and we're an employee-driven, care-driven organization. And so these, for us, work very well in our successful journey so far and so ahead. And so to summarize the overall timeline, in our journey towards Ubudiyah, we exited from the insurance clients and back in 2014, 2015, brought on the Sharia advisors in 2019, did the gap analysis, set the first Sharia goals, and those goals would then stand hand in hand with the other business goals. Those were as critical as the business goals that we had for 2019 and onwards. 2020, we worked on purpose and values refinements. 2021, we implemented Iqamatus Salah initiatives within the organization. And then in 2022 and onwards, we want to move towards bringing sunnahs in the workplace, raising our akhlaq, and also working on the leadership team and the middle management on their training and on their pursuance for Islamic principles and the behaviors that they should exhibit. That's what our goals are around in 2022. And so that's it from my side. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much, Brother Salman, for your time. Inshallah, we will move to the next session first before Q&A, and after that we will have Q&A together, inshallah.
Sure. And so I'll stop sharing my screen.
Yes, inshallah.
Anybody in the meanwhile, Assalamu alaikum. So anybody in the meanwhile, if you have any question from Brother Salman, and you can put it in the Q&A, and we will take it up once Ismail Desai finishes, then we will take the questions and answers together. So Jazakallah khair, Brother Salman, for the inspiring story. We really appreciate, and may Allah give you more barakah in your effort, and your story is an inspiration for us that where there is a will, there is a way. Allah make things easier. And it's not only you get the reward in Akhirah, you get your dunya is also like becomes, you see the reward in dunya and Akhirah both, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Yeah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. I would like to once again extend my shukriya to the esteemed management of TAIF for setting up this Sharia Compliant Business campaign, fourth session, alhamdulillah. And just to reiterate the background to the Sharia Compliant Business campaign and some of the fundamentals of the Sharia Compliant Business campaign. The Sharia Compliant Business campaign, in actual fact, is a campaign that was started by Shu'aib alayhi salatu wassalam, one of the most prominent Anbiya of Islam, prophets of Islam, in which he actually conscientized these people about the unjust Islamic business practices of the time. He warned them about giving less measurement. He warned them about the un-Islamic practices of the time and how that could affect a person's life. And this is really the background to the Sharia Compliant Business campaign, in that we want to bring about a revolutionary change within the masses of the Muslim Ummah in terms of the mindset change that whenever they conduct a business and financial transaction, is the transaction Sharia compliant or not? And this is exactly what we want to introduce here. And inshallah, we hope that through these efforts, inshallah, that we will bring about this revolutionary change within the mindset of the Ummah in terms of ensuring that the dealings are Sharia compliant. And it is not only about how we finance a vehicle, how we finance a home, etc., but it's also about ensuring that each and every aspect of our financial dealing is also Sharia compliant. For example, how we earn our income, how we ensure that our financial dealings are Sharia compliant. If you have inherited a certain amount of money, how you deal with that situation. Because remember, everything that belongs to us, we believe as Muslims, is an amana. It is a trust from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have simply been entrusted with this amana and with this trust. And we will be questioned about this amana. We will be questioned about this trust on the day of Qiyamah. There is a famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that states that an malihi min ayna iktasaba wa fima anfaqa. One of the two questions that a person will be questioned on the day of Qiyamah will be that regarding his wealth. How did you earn your wealth and how did you spend your wealth? So we know that there are only 5 questions that will be posed to a person. So 2 out of those 5 questions are regarding a person's wealth and his financial dealings. And we spend most of our time on a daily basis, day in, day out. We earn our income, we earn our risk, we earn our sustenance. So shouldn't it be that we ensure that this aspect of our life is indeed Sharia compliant? So it is an integral part of our faith as Muslims that we ensure that our dealings are Sharia compliant. Islam is not only restricted to the 4 walls of the masjid. Islam is a complete way of life, and it is also applicable to our financial and economic lives also. So with that, inshallah, let us continue with this brief presentation, and thereafter we will have a Q&A session where you can pose your questions on any Islamic financial topics. So we move over directly onto investing into crypto and NFTs, inshallah. So before we continue with the actual ruling of, cryptocurrency, of NFTs, etc., let us understand the definition of a crypto and an NFT. And then, inshallah, we will go into a brief background of the concept of money in Islam, and thereafter we will provide our brief rulings regarding this. So a cryptocurrency is simply a digital, or virtual currency that is secured by cryptography, which is sort of a software technology, which makes it extremely difficult for it to be, faked, for it to be penetrated by cyber threats, etc. So it is essentially backed by the blockchain technology, and this is what is referred to as cryptocurrency. There are 4 different forms of cryptocurrency, and now there are much more than that. You get crypto tokens, etc. And there are different types of ledgers. You get the public ledger, private ledger. You have a hyper ledger also. So there are different types of ledgers also. In other words, that the blockchain technology that backs the actual crypto itself, that is also different to a certain extent. When it comes to an NFT is what is referred to as a non-fungible token. So essentially, it is it is a unit of some data or intellectual property that is stored on a blockchain technology as a form of a digital ledger. So most NFTs today, as non-fungible tokens, are backed by the blockchain technology of Ethereum. So they use the Ethereum technology as the underlying technology to represent intellectual property, like, for example, a piece of art, for example, etc. So this is what is referred to as an NFT. I think an important point of an NFT is that it provides a level of authenticity for the work that is being produced. So if you are an artist, for example, in Africa, and you want to ensure that your work is not reproduced by another, scammer, for example, or it is not, faked by some other artist, for example, or even claimed by another artist. So you can put your piece of art through an NFT, a non-fungible token that is backed by the blockchain technology through a ledger, and that will protect the authenticity of your piece of work. I think an important point regarding an NFT is in terms of the intellectual property rights and exclusivity of your piece of work. So if you agree to place your work of art on the NFT, then to a certain extent you can also protect the exclusive rights in terms of that also. So that's basically the definition of cryptocurrency and NFT. So when it comes to money itself, perhaps the first example of money was by King Aegeus in Lydia in Turkey in the year 600 BC. And then you find, for example, that the trade of barter, in other words, where goods were bartered, goods were exchanged for each other. That was in the year 9000 BC. And in 118 BC, China started to use banknotes, and in the early 1960s, Western Union as a company started to use electronic money. And then you had the Bretton Woods Agreement in the early 1940s, in which the gold standard was removed. So this is a brief history of money. So from an Islamic perspective, there are three main views of the scholars regarding cryptocurrency. The first is that it is haram, it is impermissible. They say that because crypto itself is simply a technology, it doesn't represent money itself, so it is impermissible. Now that view is incorrect, and the reason behind that is that in Sharia, there is no restriction per se on which commodity is permitted or which commodity is impermissible. The general ruling in Sharia is al-aslu fil ashya al-ibaha, that everything is permitted in Sharia except illa idha yujad dalilun, except that if there is a proof yuaddi ila tahrim that indicates that asset or that commodity is impermissible. So when we look at the cryptocurrency itself, if there are no impermissible elements that are backing the crypto, then we cannot give an outright ruling of impermissibility. Yes, the best you can do is, if you have not conducted your research, to say that you make tawakkuf and you do not issue a ruling. The second view of the scholars is that it can be considered to be an asset of value, but it cannot be considered to be a currency definitively. In other words, that we cannot issue a blanket ruling to say that every cryptocurrency is a currency as a medium of exchange per se. Now, this is one ruling also, and this is our preferred ruling, that we say, yes, cryptocurrency can be considered to be a valid asset of value. In other words, that it can be considered to be mal in Sharia, because the society itself considers it to be mal also in Sharia. But if we look at the issue of currency itself, now that is a gray area, whether we can consider it to be a valid medium of exchange or not. And remember, there are certain rulings also that come into play if we have to say that currency or cryptocurrency itself is a valid form of thaman also. So there's a difference between something being a currency or a medium of exchange or thaman in Sharia versus something being mal or mal mutaqawwam in Sharia. So now let's look at what is considered to be mal in Sharia, what is considered to be an asset of value in Sharia. So we say in Sharia that anything that has a tangible value that is considered by the public, by urf, by ada, by norm of society, to be an asset of value that's considered to be mal. Mutaqawwa means that it has Sharia value to it. In other words, that it is not something which is impermissible or haram. Now, the issue is many cryptocurrencies, like even ETH also, it is backed by a white paper that considers and conducts impermissible lending transactions it also contains derivatives, swaps, etc., which are impermissible. So we cannot issue a definitive ruling to say all cryptocurrencies are permitted. We have to look at the underlying issue of the white paper to ensure whether it is Sharia compliant or not. So that is the main issue. Now we move over to what is Samanya. In other words, as you can see in the previous slide, that what is Samanya? Samanya means something that has, it is considered to be a medium of exchange in Sharia. So if you look at the previous slide, you will see that Samanya has two main components. One is istilah and the other is taqawwum. So istilah and taqawwum basically means that it is commonly used by society to be a medium of exchange, and it also has common acceptability in among the masses also to be used as a medium of exchange. So if you look at PayPal, Tesla, etc., they use Bitcoin as a valid medium of exchange. So it has gained widespread acceptance as a valid medium of exchange. So we can safely say that Bitcoin can be considered to be a currency itself. But as for other cryptos, we need to look at that more specifically to see whether it can be a valid medium of exchange, a Saman or not. Now let's look at the different types of Saman, the different types of mediums of exchange. So you get Samanya khilqi and Samanya urfi. Samanya khilqi means it refers to fiat money, and then you get Samanya khilqi refers to gold and silver, which is natural currency, and then Samanya urfi is that money that is considered to be a valid medium of exchange by society. So this can be considered to be fiat money, which is our normal US dollar, pound, etc. You get e-money, etc. As per the previous slide, as you can see on the previous slide, you get fiduciary money, different forms of money, as you can see on the previous slide. So these are the two different types of Saman, Samanya khilqi and Samanya urfi. We move over now to the next slide. So what is the previous slide before introduction to Sukuk? So the technical definition of money. What is considered to be money? So money, from a technical perspective, it is a store of value. It has exchangeability, it's a medium of exchange. It is a unit of account, and it can also be used as a standard for deferred payment. So if I purchase an item from a store, for example, then in terms of your medium of payment, that can be used as a deferred form of payment also. So this is what is these are the main features of money. So when we're looking at cryptocurrency being money, we need to look at these main issues as to whether they can be considered to be a valid form of money or not. So money has to be acceptable. You can use it as a form of enforceability. It is fungible. It is divisible, etc. According to Allama Ibn Nujaym rahimahullah and Ibn Abidin, famous scholars of fiqh and Islamic jurisprudence, they have stated that the main features of money is that it has to be durability and it has to be stable. So if the currency itself is, if it is storable and it has, durability, it is, something which is people are desirous of. It has durability, and it can also be stored as a valid, medium of exchange. For example, you have dollars, for example, pounds. You can store it. Desirability of money means that it is something that people, look forward to procuring. So, for example, if a person works for 10 hours, 15 hours, for example, and they receive $10, that it is a desirable form of money that they can use and purchase other items, for example. So the other important issue when issuing a ruling of cryptocurrency and even NFT is the maqasid of Sharia. In other words, that we look at now not only the issue of permissibility, but we also look at the issue of saying, does this promote true Islamic economics or not? And is it actually making the world, more, empowered from an economic perspective, or is it actually, an issue in terms of destroying, what is called economic or distributive justice? So Islam talks about the issue of demonopolization of wealth. So one ayah of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَيْ لَا يَكُونَ دُولَةً بَيْنَ الْأَغْنِيَاءِ, which basically means that one of the fundamental elements of an ideal Islamic economic system is the unjust distribution of wealth. So Islam promotes a demonopolization of wealth as opposed to a monopolization of wealth. Now, if we look at an Oxfam report of 2019, it stated that the world's wealthiest 26 people control the wealth of 2.6 billion people on the planet. So imagine 2.6 billion people controlling the wealth of, 26 people controlling the wealth equivalent to that of 2.6 billion people. So this is an unjust economic system of riba and interest that perpetuates the inequality gap between the wealthy and the poor. If you look at the Organization of Islamic Countries, or OIC member countries, it is stated that approximately 30% of the OIC member countries' citizens live below the poverty line. So these are major issues to consider, especially when looking at the issue of cryptocurrency, NFT, etc. Our view is, and in consultation with many scholars, is that in general, the concept of cryptocurrency and NFT is permitted because it is simply a software technology that is backed by the software or the concept of blockchain technology. It is not a currency or an asset of value per se. It is a concept, so the concept is permitted. But we have to look at the specifics of each issue to understand whether that particular crypto is permitted or not. So I receive many questions from the public almost on a daily basis. Is this crypto permitted? Is that crypto permitted? So we have to look at those cryptos very carefully to understand whether a specific crypto is Sharia compliant or not. Now, there are certain guidelines, inshallah, that we plan to release to the public, inshallah, with regards to the issue of cryptocurrency, which we will release very soon. So, you can use it as a guideline when deciding whether you have to invest in a particular currency or not. So, the general, issue and the general ruling on cryptocurrency and NFT is that it is permitted as a concept, but you have to look at the individual crypto to see whether it is Sharia compliant or not. What we can say definitively is that the concept of Bitcoin is a valid medium of exchange, and it is also an asset of value from our perspective. Next slide. So I would like to provide a quick background to Sukuk, or Islamic bonds versus conventional bonds. I will go through it very quickly. So what is a Sukuk? Sukuk refers to certificated Sharia compliant financial instruments. So it comes from the Arabic word Suk, which refers to a certificate. So Sukuk basically simply refers to a wrapper around a Sharia compliant instrument. So for example, if there is a musharaka project where two parties have joined forces for a business venture, say for example a property development, so they issue certificates in the marketplace, they receive investors through that. This exactly is what is referred to as Sukuk or an Islamic bond. Next slide. Now, you can see here that what are the main differences between Sukuk and a conventional sort of debt instrument. So as you can see that in a Sukuk, it represents ownership of the underlying asset. Bonds simply represents a pure debt obligation. Right? If you look at the maturity of Sukuk, it corresponds to the actual project, whereas in a conventional debt, the relationship is simply a loan of money. So, the bank or the issuer of a conventional debt like a bond, it is simply about how to earn money on money, and there is no issue about the project itself. The Sukuk prospectus is Sharia compliant, whereas in a conventional prospectus, it's not reviewed for Sharia compliance. And the Sukuk manager has to abide by Sharia rules. Sukuk holders will also have to pay the rights to profits and losses. So if you look at a conventional debt instrument, typically it is simply a relationship of loan with interest, and there is no Sharia review of such an instrument, and the bond holders are not exposed to any losses. So basically, it is simply a debt instrument, and the issuer has to repay the principal plus the interest also which is totally impermissible. Next slide. So this is a sample diagram of what a Sukuk bond looks like. So as you can see, you have an issuer SPV, and I get this question many times: why do we have an issuer SPV? So that the answer to that is for various reasons. Firstly, for taxation purposes. That, for example, let's say there's an issuer in Dubai, so they'd like to issue the Sukuk, so investors can come into a tax-neutral entity in a favorable jurisdiction, like, for example, Jersey, Isle of Man, Cayman Islands, for example. Secondly is from a regulatory perspective. So, certain regulations in certain countries, these are more like, non-Muslim majority countries like Kenya, for example, etc., where they don't have, suitable Sukuk regulations. And this issue becomes more compounded and important and relevant when there's an issue of a potential default, etc. So how do you consider default from a Sukuk perspective? So that's a second issue. Third issue, I think, generally is to make sure that the issuer SPV protects the interests of the Sukuk holders. And I think this is very critical and important, because the Sukuk investors will not invest directly into an entity, because then there could be a potential conflicts, etc., and that type of thing. So you have an issuer SPV, they will issue a Sukuk certificate, the investor will purchase that certificate, the funds will be used to purchase an asset. The originator, which is the Sukuk promoter, will contribute their asset also, because remember, musharaka means that there is capital injection from both sides, from the side of the investor and from the side of the project owner or the promoter or originator. So this is how a Sukuk works as a Sukuk musharaka. There are other forms of Sukuk, like Sukuk murabaha, Sukuk ijara, etc. We won't cover that in today's session, inshallah. But this is a brief explanation of what Sukuk is all about. Now, Sukuk is a great tool and a fantastic opportunity for investors, for business owners to raise capital from the market according to your terms and conditions. So it's not as though you go to a bank and you receive $100 million loan, for example. Here you can create your own project, you can issue Sukuk in the market, you can receive funds from the public, but you can dictate the terms and conditions. Obviously, the Sukuk investors must buy into your project and that type of thing. So I think the big issue with Sukuk is that we need to democratize it to a certain level, so that we have much more benefit in terms of this social balance that Islam seeks to create. What we currently have with Sukuk is we have major institutions that are raising capital from the market from other major institutions, but there is no democratization of wealth from a social justice, social balance perspective. So we need a further democratization of Sukuk, where even a Sukuk for $1 million could be issued. If you are running a small to medium enterprise like an SME, you must be able to issue a Sukuk in the market, receive capital from the investors, you make a profit and you return the funds back. So Sukuk is not only for institutions, for governments, etc. It's also for businesses, so that they can also make a return, and they can use that fresh capital injection from the public to grow their own businesses, and thereby creating a good, social, circle of economic equality, economic just distribution and equitable distribution of wealth. If you look at SMEs are the lifeline of the economic system globally. SMEs, whether you talk of the USA, Pakistan, Africa, wherever it is globally, they form the lifeblood of any economic system. So we have to use Sukuk as a tool to democratize social justice for SME, small to medium enterprises. Next slide. So these are some issues with regards to careers in Islamic finance. I will just go through them very briefly, and then perhaps we could go on to the Q&A session. So some of the main issues, when it comes to careers in Islamic finance is, there are many of these articles out there, etc., that portray that there's a huge demand of hundreds of thousands, of requirement for Islamic finance professionals, etc. while there is a requirement, I think some of these articles, some of these news pieces, sort of exaggerate the requirement. So just a few points when it comes to a career in Islamic finance. I think the first thing is that, institutions are seeking, students that are professionally qualified, but with specialization in Islamic finance. So perhaps you could have, a CFA qualification and also have an additional Islamic finance qualification to that. What I generally find is that, many students want to only specialize in Islamic finance, but they don't have an MBA qualification. They don't have some professional qualification. So I think it's good to have a CFA as a background. You have a CFA, you have an MBA, for example. So that forms the basis of your understanding. And then from there, you specialize in Islamic finance. I think another important point is that in order to advance as a career in Islamic finance is to have suitable experience. So experience is important because an institution won't simply take you on as a graduate of an Islamic financial institution. They want you to have the relevant experience. And generally what it is that you will generally enter the conventional part of the bank or financial institution. You'll gain the relevant experience, and then you will move over to the Islamic division. Or perhaps you work at another Islamic finance house, and then you're moving with relevant experience. I think an important aspect also is to develop an additional skill set. So if you develop an additional skill set, like for example, if you are able to network, if you are able to to do professional content writing, or other skills that you could have that could complement your current skills, I think that would be very good in terms of advancing your career. Also, I think an important point is to keep reading. Sorry for the typo, but so I think it's important to keep reading, to keep up with the Islamic finance industry, so that you are updated in terms of what is happening. Sometimes you study, and after 10, 15 years, the industry has moved on, and you haven't updated your knowledge. The other thing is what is important. The Islamic finance industry is a very niche sector that is very tightly knit. So you have to break in. And the only way to break in, perhaps one of the greatest ways, is to network, attend conferences, see how you can add value to the industry by maybe writing articles, showing your skill set, etc., and building a brand. I think those are things that will get you, interested, or get other parties interested in your expertise. And what I would say is that, if you are a graduate in Islamic finance, or you're trying to get into the industry, just try to get your foot in the door. So whether it is you get a part-time job at a bank, or you get a part-time job at a fund, for example, just get your foot in the door, get some relevant experience, or even you can become a consultant to a professional services organization or institution, and that will give you the relevant experience also. Another important point is that Islamic finance, being in its nascent stages, needs influencers, people with community speaking skills that can go out there and influence others. So that not only can you bring in customers for your organization, but also you can build your own brand in terms of being a proponent of Islamic finance. If you look at myself, I consider myself to be a very passionate, proponent of Islamic finance and economics. For example, last year we had close to 25 events where I spoke to close to about maybe 5,000 to 6,000 people on Islamic finance. So I think that is the type of thing that, if you want to develop as a career in Islamic finance, you have to be very passionate about this industry. You have to speak the Islamic finance lingo. You have to understand that you have to have the right context in Islamic finance. You've got to be well networked in the space, etc. So those are the type of things that I think will advance your career in Islamic finance. And when it comes to opportunities in Islamic finance, there are a number of opportunities, but I'd just like to speak to 3 or 4 main ones. The first is the issue of entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship basically means it's not entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is where you become an entrepreneur on your own. Entrepreneurship means you are in an organization and you create a new project. So for example, let's say you are in a conventional institution, so you develop an Islamic finance project within your own institution, right? and then you move over to that and hit it. And I've seen many of my colleagues, of my friends that I've encouraged over the years, where they work for a conventional bank or conventional fund. I encourage them. I said, look, establish an Islamic window in your bank, and inshallah, we'll assist you. So, mashallah, today there are many of these windows and banks, Islamic funds also, that I've encouraged over the period of time for them to set these things up. I think entrepreneurship is underrated, and there's a huge opportunity for Islamic entrepreneurship. In fact, one bank currently, which is one of the largest banks globally, the brothers there, mashallah, took the initiative, they took my advice, they took my support, and today they've established an Islamic window there. So these are opportunities that are waiting out there for the average professional that is working within the finance space. Then you have the opportunity of fintech. I mean, fintech, today we live in an innovation industry in which fintech is an integral element of that. So there's huge opportunities in Islamic fintech, content marketing to write content. I mean, there's close to over 2,000 Islamic financial institutions. You can write content for those institutions. Also, the issue of venture capital. So venture capital, VC investment, there's a huge opportunity in VC investment. So if you look at the Middle East, you look at the OIC countries, there's a number of VC funds. So why can't we create an Islamic venture capital fund? So these are some of the opportunities out there that you can use to advance your career in Islamic finance. So I know we have further topics for today, but I would like to leave that for the next session, inshallah, and hand over to Brother Hassan, inshallah, and Brother Mohammed for the Q&A session, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Great. Two very inspiring discussions today, mashallah. And Hassan, are you there? So I think we, unlike our normal routine, we are ahead of the time. So what I would suggest that for the sake of convenience, and so that we don't prolong the session more, we will take 3 questions each. First 3 questions for the session that was done by Brother Salman, where he presented his success story of his business qordata and how they succeeded, and what was the process that they went through. Brother Salman, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I think maybe I can take the lead in asking the first question, and then we can from the participants we can take the other questions. My question is, what was the key motivation for you to do your business in a Sharia compliant way? What made you start this? What was the key motivation?
Right. So, so one of the things that I had already mentioned on the slide, I'll just repeat those items. And for us, the main motivation, the top one, was to earn halal income for ourselves and our associates and their families. I think that was the starting point for all of us.
Okay, great. And alhamdulillah, you from both this Sharia compliance, do you have any regrets on this, or this is a source of success for you in your worldly, in terms of the worldly means as well, not only in Akhirah?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for asking this, Mr. Zia. And we get that a lot, right? And because it's counterintuitive that you're basically adding additional burden to what you're already doing in business, and especially for tech companies, right? And especially for companies who have this global delivery model. When I say global delivery model, it means we have teams in EU and we have teams in in the US, and then we have teams here in the subcontinent. And so there's this challenge of cultural differences. And then there is this challenge of time zone as well, because US and Pakistan time zone is like right now, the earliest US time zone is 10 hours behind Pakistan, right? So in the midst of all these communication gaps and challenges, and especially during COVID the last 2 years, we get this question a lot, right? So and the answer is that there is no regret at all, right? It's so wonderful, and the experience is so great. And I usually use this analogy in Urdu, but I'll try to replicate that in English. It's basically the example of when you have this bowl in which you have this food for the hens. If you take a handful of the food and then spread it across the floor, the hen is going to take the whole day to get through eating all the food. And a lot of effort would be put in by the hen to get that done right. And versus if you put all the food in one bowl and then put it in front of the hen will get all the food eat all the food in a matter of minutes, right? And so this is what Allah does when you start following Islamic principles. In the beginning, it seems like tough, but then as you move along, it becomes very easy, and you get a lot of barakah in time as well, right? You see a lot of discussions, unnecessary debates, unnecessary discussions, unnecessary issues that somehow Allah does not send across to you, right? So you avoid all of that, and hence gain that time, and then use that to do this pursuit. So no regrets at all. I know it was a long answer, but it's a very interesting question.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Any of the participants who would like to ask any questions from Brother Salman, kindly raise hand or type your question. I see there are a few questions relating to crypto. There is one question from our sister Sayyida Farah. I think she's from Islamabad. She's asking, how can we implement Islamic social financing in a startup culture for the females in Pakistan? I mean, can we get any assistance? I don't understand. Maybe funding by assistance. What does she mean? Or in terms of the guidance?
If that's a question routed for me, I don't have any thoughts on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. We move because we have any other person, any other question for Brother Salman? Just raise hand or write it in the question and answer. I see Ayub, I see two. Okay, so I will take the first one. I'm allowing you to speak. Ayub, kindly unmute yourself and please speak quickly. Can you hear us, Mr. Ayub?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
To present briefly myself, I'm your brother Ayub from Morocco, and the membership of the Moroccan Association.
Can you speak a bit louder? We can hardly hear you.
Okay, you can hear me clearly now?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
So I told you I'm your brother Ayub from Morocco, and the membership of the Moroccan Association of Islamic Finance.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Thank you very much. One of our projects would be, inshallah, a webinar about the same issues, especially the fintech and cryptocurrencies. I'm really glad to assist to this webinar. Just to say that, alhamdulillah, I'm really happy, and جعلكم الله من الذين لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. That was only my only request. Thank you very much.
Jazakallah. Shukran. Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Tijani Muhammad, any quickly? Yalla, speak, please. Unmute yourself and speak here. Brother Tijani. Okay. Sezen, I don't know what is exactly is the name, but Sezen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Yes, please. Go ahead, sister.
It's Sezin. I wrote it in the questionnaire, but I really wonder that for the viewing process in cadence meeting, do you talk about your firm performance or your country law problems or the Sharia, the Islamic law problems? What do you use firstly as a first priority? Thank you very much.
Right, and yeah, I can take that. So thank you very much for asking the question there. So it's in our fortnightly cadence. It's a meeting that we have on every 2 weeks for an hour. The internal team members and our Sharia compliance advisor would get together on that conversation in one room and also online connected. We would discuss about challenges that we are facing in implementing the some of the policies. Is there an issue in the staff that we would need to fix? Is there an issue with some of the policies of the government that we need to tackle in terms of implementing something, right? And then there was also one of our customers that wanted us to have certain clauses in the contract, and so we discussed that during our conversation as well, right? So things across, it can be of any nature that requires a discussion. We have established a forum, a scheduled forum, so that we don't miss out on those items and we knock down those challenges in that meeting. So it can be anything. It's not restricted. It's not a restricted agenda.
Thank you very much, Brother Tijani. I'm just giving you one more chance. If you can unmute yourself and then speak. Otherwise, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
MashaAllah, it's a great having this kind of lectures. But my question is straight to Mufti Ismail Desai for the issue of issue related to experience. For instance, if happens that a person have undergoing masters and PhD under Islamic finance, is there any recommended course needed for being a professional, somebody to be part of the system, or having certificate related to Islamic finance in master's program and PhD is okay for the person? Thank you.
Sheikh, the question is addressed to you. Can you kindly reply?
MashaAllah, very good question. And I think I'd like to answer this question from two perspectives. The first is whether you need to have another qualification or not in terms of your expertise in Islamic finance, banking, and economics. So this is a theoretical question which many Islamic finance professionals and practitioners face. And my response to that is that in order for one to be an Islamic finance professional that is adequately able to address contemporary issues of relevant financial importance, one would need to have some financial or economic expertise and background. So what I mean by this is that if you are studying, let's say, a master's or a PhD degree in Islamic finance, you need to look at the content to say, does it adequately address the issue of finance, banking, economics, etc. One would understand that generally many of these courses, like at NCF, etc., they would teach some form of finance and also economics. So whether you have issues, studies of macroeconomics, microeconomics, issues of econometrics, etc., that would generally be taught. Right. So if you already have a master's and PhD, I assume that you have relevant expertise and knowledge in finance and banking and economics. The second question then is that in order to get accepted in the industry, do you need to have some finance or banking qualification, etc.? Now, generally, if you look at the industry and you look at the sector itself, most Islamic finance practitioners come from a finance and banking background. So they would have a formal qualification as an MBA, for example, or a finance professional, or a finance qualification like CPA, for example. So that will also give you the added leverage that you're not pigeonholed into only Islamic financial institutions. So what I mean by this is that if you just have a PhD in Islamic finance, maybe you will get accepted into, let's say, for example, an Islamic bank, for example. If you have business qualification, etc., you may get accepted into like the World Bank or International Monetary Fund or some other institution where you have more opportunities to develop Islamic financial products, etc. So I would say, for two reasons. One is to keep your options open so that you have a vaster, approach or broader approach to your career. And secondly is so that you are more, you are more desirable from a career perspective for Islamic financial institutions.
Thank you very much, brother. We are seriously running out of time, so I will take just one more question from anybody. Okay, there is Momo Oj. Forgive me for pronouncing the name wrongly, but I've opened Momo Adoje Amamitu. I have unmuted you. Kindly speak. Unmute yourself and speak, please. Momo Adoje Amatu. Unmute yourself. Are you there? If you want to ask a question, I will count up to 3, and if you don't unmute, I will move. Thank you. Sauda Ali, I'm allowing you to speak. Just unmute yourself and ask the question.
Assalamu alaikum. In a country where the Islamic finance industry is basically non-existent and where one major goal would be to have competitive Sharia compliant banking alternative for Muslims and non-Muslims alike, what are some of the steps that a Muslim organization can take towards this goal? We are already on the path of educating ourselves, but what other recommendations would you give us? Thank you.
Okay. Any of you can answer. Sheikh, you want to answer?
I think, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this is a very important question that I receive from many, non-Muslim majority countries in terms of how do we advance in the field of Islamic finance and economics. And I think, I would respond to that in two ways. The first is that one is, knowledge of Islamic finance. So from a knowledge perspective, I think that, there's a certain degree where you learn the generalist elements of Islamic finance, in terms of the background and the fundamentals, etc. And then from there, you move on to a very specialist understanding of Islamic finance, which comes over a period of time. So I don't think you can learn that at a particular university or at a particular school. That comes with actual execution in the market, with your affinity with Islamic finance over a long period of time. For example, for myself, I've been in the industry for many years. I still learn things on an ongoing basis. So in order to really specialize, I think that takes a long period of time. But moving on to my second point is that being a Muslim in a non-Muslim majority country, I think there are several initiatives that you could do. The first is, I think what's very critical is to create awareness, for Islamic finance, for Sharia compliance in your country. So inviting scholars to give programs, to give lectures, creating that awareness within the public that will arise or arouse their passion and dedication and commitment in the Muslims and the masses to become Sharia compliant. So that is the first stage in developing any Sharia compliant institution or Islamic financial institution is to create that awareness, to develop advocates for Islamic finance, as I call them. So that is the first initiative. The second initiative is to develop like a working committee or working group that will be able to push these initiatives forward. Because what happens is you start up one initiative, and then you have another 5 people that are doing the same thing. So it becomes a very defragmented, sort of internal, chaotic manner of dealing with things. So create an internal working group in your country of the relevant finance professionals, Islamic finance professionals. You're going to have scholars also as part of it. And then you direct initiatives through that. The third initiative I would say is start, if you have knowledge of Islamic finance, you've developed to a particular way, start doing trainings start giving free trainings or whatever trainings you want to give to banks, to accounting firms on Islamic finance. So you can call in, let's say, a bank, say to them, we want to give you a presentation on Islamic finance. And then thereafter, you discuss with them, how can we work with you? So I think that's a third initiative. The fourth initiative that you could do also is sort of like a lobby initiative. So a lobby initiative means, you go to the different mosques, masajid, Islamic organizations, etc., and say, I need signatures from you to indicate your interest in Islamic finance. And then you can take that, go to your government office, etc., and show them, look, this is the interest we have in Islamic finance of our constituents. How are you assisting us to enable legislation, to even create a dialogue? So I think the key thing is sometimes in Islamic finance, to advance the industry, because of our passion, we become too, I would say, too engrossed in our own, growth and in quick wins and in quick advancement of the industry. But if you look at the finance industry per se itself, it took hundreds of years to get to where it is. So if you want to get Islamic finance to the next level, it will take time. So we have to have a working group, put milestones in place so that you hit certain milestones over a period of time, and that's how you grow. What I've generally seen is that, we have a very fragmented way of working, and that type of thing. So we need to have more of these, initiatives, inshallah, to develop Islamic finance.
It has been a pleasure. Special thanks to Brother Salman. And I think like what Sheikh has mentioned, I can summarize that where there is a will, there is a way. So the most important thing, and which is the lesson from qordata and from the presentation of Brother Salman, is that if this can be done in the most difficult location that you can think of, if this can be done in US, it can be done anywhere else in the world. So very soon we will be starting another session. So although like this is a very interesting session, and with the special thanks to all the participants for today, especially our guest brother Salman and Sheikh Mufti Ismail Desai. Special thanks to both of you for your inspirational discussion. And like when we hear you, Sheikh, or we heard Brother Salman, we felt like we should continue listening to you more and more. It's like is more soothing and like energetic for us. It's so motivating. Inshallah, although this may be the last of this series, but inshallah we will again be our effort to have Sharia compliant business, and the initiative that Sheikh Brother Ismail Desai and his esteemed father Sheikh Ibrahim Desai rahmatullah alayh, he started. Inshallah, we will continue working together under his guidance. I would like to thank all of you here. And any questions or anything, I know there are several questions which I'm not able to take now, but you can kindly forward to contact@taiflearning.com, contact@taiflearning.com. we will be more than happy to suggest to contact both the brothers for any response, if any response is needed. Thank you very much, Jazakallah Khair, Sheikh, and thank you very much, Brother Salman. We wish you all the best in your business, and we hope to see more successful Sharia compliant businesses across the globe. And inshallah, we are here as TAIF Digital Learning to help and support you in this cause. With this, we end this session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This session is concluded. Any comment from Sheikh or Brother Salman, if you are there, just a few, one or two lines before we close.
MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah, this is a very, very good initiative. And I would just like to mention 2 points before I terminate. The first important point is that in Islam, every single step that is taken towards something good is rewarded, and there is even greater reward for those who spread good. And we know the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innamal a'malu binniyat. Every action is based upon intention, and let us try to be fa'ilu khair. Fa'ilu khair means that someone that does good and we also spread the good, because that good action will continue until the day of Qiyamah. In other words, that if we have to spread something good, let's say, for example, in this context, we teach others how to be Sharia compliant in their dealings, etc. Inshallah, who knows, maybe their children, their great-grandchildren will continue to do the same action, and we will get that reward until the day of Qiyamah, inshallah. So this is really what our intention is, number one. Number two is that the more we become engrossed in the field of being Sharia compliant, etc., this creates a mindset change for us, that how can we be Sharia compliant, yet we are committing the sin of listening to music, we are committing the sin of seeing that which is haram, etc. So it's not only about how to be Sharia compliant, it's also about an entire mindset change. So when we push ourselves in a particular direction, we will be forced to, as part of our lifestyle, to change our lifestyles around so that we become better and pious Muslims. So this exactly is what this initiative is all about. How can we become better Muslims so that we become, agents of change and goodness in the world, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Brother Salman, I think, has left for prayer. If he is there, I can have request him for a few comments before we conclude.
Yeah, I was just leaving, and thank you very much for the opportunity, and it was an inspirational session from Sheikh as well. The last few pieces of advice also was great, right? So I would make sure that I pass this on to the team as well, and pass along the kind words that you've all shared to the whole team who did this, who are in this journey for qordata.
Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you more, and may Allah, like you are an example for many others, may Allah let all of us follow the right path, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This session is concluded. Thank you.